Welcome back. We are now embarking upon session 2 of level 1. Last session, we did the progressive relaxation of tensing and relaxing. And today we're going to proceed into just relaxation, deep inner relaxation. And we're also going to talk about healthy thought management, how to manage the thoughts that invariably come with cancer, the thoughts that create distress for us. As leaders, you're going to want to be aware of new people joining today. Sometimes people aren't able to make it to the first session. They come to the second. You want to greet them, maybe introduce yourself again. Remind people about confidentiality. It's all very familiar to you now. Some of the challenges for today's session are going to be that some of us are very invested in thinking positively. Even in talking to friends, when I have a friend with cancer, I have a friend with cancer right now, many of us probably do, and people say about her, oh, she's just so positive. And I think, well, no pressure there, right? Being positive is kind of part of that fighting spirit thing that we all want to foster and want to appear strong in the face of anxiety. The difficulty is that being positive all the time is a tremendous burden, and it isolates us from other people. It means that we can't be honest about how we're feeling. And those harder feelings, those less comfortable feelings, they get put into the old allostatic backpack. They don't get expressed, they don't get released. And so our job as leaders is to make it safe to explore difficult feelings, to explore difficult scenarios. And part of that will be our own comfort with it. And that reminds me, as we go through this, developing a felt sense for the material is important. And so doing the exercises yourself, listening to those MP3 files and seeing what you think of them, being able to tell people that you've tried it, that you know where the challenges might lie, do some problem solving for yourself in that process so that you're familiar with it and recognize that it's not always easy. So let's go to the PowerPoint that we use for today, session 2. So we welcome people back. And one of the slides, the first slide that is reminding us that we're going to be talking about thoughts today. It's not the cancer that depresses us, but our thoughts about cancer. If we didn't know what cancer meant, or if we didn't have a meaning that we ascribed to the word cancer, cancer could just be another word, but it's not. It is full of our own history and our own thoughts and beliefs about it. And it's that causes us the most distress. And here's a little bit of Eckhart Tolle, which is great because we're going to be talking a lot about him in level 5. Words, no matter if they are vocalized and made into sounds, or remain unspoken as thoughts, can cast an almost hypnotic spell on you. And for those of you who are wide awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, thinking the thoughts, feeling the feelings, you'll recognize that almost hypnotic nature of our thoughts. So a brief reminder about confidentiality. I want us to all be tuned in to that idea that we share our stories, but they still belong to us. We don't walk away with other people's stories. We can talk about our own experiences at Wellspring, and we don't talk about other people. At this point in teaching, I would also do that initial relaxation, sometimes getting a little deeper, sometimes, well, really focusing on the breath and reminding people that this is a strategy that they can use anytime, anywhere. I won't do it again today because I'm sure you're getting tuned into it, and I want you to develop your own relationship to it. You can have a script, there is a script, but maybe you don't need it. Maybe you can feel your way into what you're asking people to do. The short form of the way I do it, and you may have a different strategy, I ask people to focus on the breath, to notice the minute details of the breath. Like, have you ever experienced the sensation of the breath on your upper lip? It's there, but you have to really tune in. I like reminding people that the oxygen, the air literally swirls down into the lungs, that the bronchioles are actually curved so that it does swirl and it gets warmed and humidified so that you can't actually feel it entering into the lungs. It's the same temperature as your body. There's that inhalation. Can people feel that inhalation? Can they experience that expansion of the chest? And then the letting go. And following the breath all the way out rather than cutting it short. So many of us do that, right? We exhale, but we say, oh, that's enough. Let me inhale again. We don't let the lungs empty. So allow them to experience that, to experiment with it. I like to come into the shoulders because the shoulders are really where we hold a lot of tension. And then I like them to develop a relationship with the chair so that they feel held. I'm so surprised at how many people perch on their chairs. If you're ever in the clinic at the hospital, you'll see a lot of perching. It's because they haven't let themselves into that chair to be held. In a sense, we're reminding people that there is support all around them. They just have to allow themselves to find it, to access it. Then I ask people to remember about dropping their weight into the chair, that sense of feeling grounded, allowing their feet to be firmly grounded, to feel that sense of support. And then to come around to the breath in the belly. This is a little bit harder for people to do sometimes. Using the image of a little balloon in the belly, that when we inhale, the belly expands, the balloon in the belly expands, and sometimes we let it go and the belly falls back. So feeling that sense of expansion and contraction. Sometimes two hands on the belly is helpful because as you inhale, they separate. As you exhale, they come back together again. And we come back to the breath. And on the session 2, we're now introducing a slightly new technique. We're not using the sigh. We're going to use the sound Om. We're using the sound Om as that universal vibration that you may be familiar with from any yoga classes that you've taken. It is reminding us that Alistair comes from this background, that his teacher, Swami Radha, was a yoga teacher as well, and that Om became very much a part of his own practice, and we can use it too. I like thinking of Om as a way to externalize the breath. In essence, to make it a larger target for our attention. Breath comes and goes, and sometimes we don't let ourselves feel it. But if we vocalize it, it becomes far more obvious. And in a busy mind that keeps getting distracted, if we can make the breath a bigger target for our attention, then we have something to hold on to. And so what I would do is I would demonstrate what that's like for the group. After we do that initial grounding, with eyes still closed, say we're going to share the sound of Om, and it's going to sound like this. Om. Then I ask the group to join me, and we do it 3 times. And so you're going to want to get really comfortable with that. There's no right tune, there's no right note, although we had one member of the group who was pitch perfect. She could tell what note you were on at any given time. She said I had a slightly flat C. She called it a lazy C, that I always hit the C. Don't ask me how. I had no idea I was doing it. But apparently I hit the same note each time. And that's probably because when you become familiar with it, you just kind of do your thing and it tends to be the same. What I love about this is you can feel it resonate in the body. You can feel the vibration in your chest, in your face. I sometimes think of it as the purring of a cat, soothing sound. And so some people in the group will groove to this and say, oh yeah, I got this, no problem. And other people in the group will go, that is too weird for words. I remember one guy saying, you know, Claire, the first time you did that in group, I thought I'd join a cult. No, it's not really a cult. It's just a way of making the breath a larger target for our attention and to help clear away some of the thoughts. So let's do 3 ohms together. Om. And then breathing normally. Noticing any sensations. And then very easily, very gently, returning to the room. So, as always, we ask the group, how was that? And as usual, the people who enjoyed it step up and say, wow, man, that was so this, so that. I really enjoyed that. It reminded me of my yoga class. And the other ones who may not have found it so comfortable, kind of silent because they don't want to challenge the leader and they don't want to challenge the group. So this is where we invite them. So for some of you, that's going to feel very comfortable and familiar. And for others of you, that probably felt pretty weird. How many people felt that was a kind of weird thing to do? Maybe you've never done it in a group, right? We want a gentle touch, a sense of humor. We don't want to get all dogmatic about it. But in time, groups really, they enjoy using the sound Om. And it's also quite lovely to be in a group and hear all the different Oms. When we do it online, I don't know whether I've had people with their microphones on or off, but that's worth exploring. Maybe it would be a good idea to let people hear each other. Then we want to check in with last week. How was it last week? What did you think? What did you walk away with? What was most salient for you when you walked away? What did you think? So we're trying to encourage people to review and to notice. And the word noticing is going to become really important in the healing journey because that's what we're asking them to do, is to notice thoughts, notice feelings, notice stress, notice their bodies. So what did we do? Last week, we introduced the idea of helping yourself and mobilizing inner resources. We talked about the allostatic load, the old knapsack, and we talked about the fight, flight, and freeze response. And then we introduced the relaxation response. Any thoughts about that? Any thoughts about allostatic load, that knapsack? Anyone wearing one today? I used to I walk around with a knapsack in actual fact, and I often sort of pull it up and say, here's my knapsack. I remember one of my volunteers saying to me when I was leaving after a group, he said, hey, Claire, don't forget your old allostatic load there. It was a very funny moment because really that's what we do, is pick it up, put it back on again. So it becomes kind of a familiar metaphor for people. The other thing we did was we reviewed the stress pathway, and that's the slide that I have up here right now. And we discussed the emotional impact of cancer and the value of emotional expressions and support groups. And we did that muscle relaxation technique, tensing and relaxing. Let's talk about that. What was it like? Reflections? Did you get a chance to practice during the week? Was it helpful? Did you notice your breathing? Are you working in the workbook? Are there things in there that you want to talk about? Let's have a look at that. So we want to encourage the idea that in order to learn a new motor skill, practice is necessary. We are way too practiced on the stress response. Now we want to get practiced on the relaxation response, and that takes some work, and we want to encourage that. We want to cue some of the challenges that people might meet in doing some of the work in the workbook. Was it difficult to find time? Cancer's a pretty busy time. Were you able to find some time to do it? Did anybody find themselves falling asleep during the time of using the MP3 file under the progressive relaxation? Yeah? What did you do about that? Yeah? One of the things that we can do is not do it lying down. We do it sitting up. We're less likely to fall asleep. We start to fall asleep, we get the head drop. And we want to lift our heads because there are two reasons to do a relaxation exercise. One is to learn it and to create the pathways in the brain. And the other one is to induce sleep. Both reasons are perfectly valid, but we do it differently. So relaxation sitting up, we're more likely to be aware through the whole thing. Doing a relaxation when we're lying down might induce sleep, which is okay. But if we don't catch all of it, we're not learning that pathway. We're not building up that highway of relaxation response. Did anybody find the tensing, relaxing hard to do? I might here at this point talk about when I first learned it. I found that I was really good at the tensing part, not so good at the relaxation part, which is what I wanted to learn. And so this session today is all about that, just the relaxation response. Did anybody access an emotion wheel online? Did anybody do some work identifying their feelings? Do some writing about it? Asking people to share their stories, bringing to it a sense of excitement and enthusiasm, because really this is exciting material. It's all about curiosity and learning, and all of these strategies are useful wherever we are on the healing path. Leaders included on that. I'm hoping that you're practicing some of these things too. Okay, so what we want to do today is we're going to spend some time looking at the stress response and different places we can come in. So last week we talked about the external events that we label as stressful. So somebody coming for dinner, is that a stress or is it a pleasure? If socializing right now feels stressful, if large family events feel stressful, maybe it's okay to reduce your exposure to that. Maybe it's okay to reduce your exposure to the news. Have you ever tried taking a break from the news, a hiatus? I'm taking a 1-week break from the daily news. See how that feels. Honestly, if there's anything big, you'll hear about it. But what would it be like just to take a break from all of that? Remembering that news is usually about the bad stuff, not the good stuff. We can change labels, and that's something we're going to work on today. Maybe mother-in-law coming for dinner is a hassle, not a disaster. Maybe it's just another dinner rather than feel a sense of performance. We can learn to quieten the mind, and we've already started doing that. Oming is not sure whether that's a verb, to ohm, but oming is an opportunity to quieten the mind because it becomes full of the sound of our voices, our breaths, rather than the busyness of the mind. We've already started working on relaxation of the body. We started that last week, and we continue that this week. And we're well on our way with self-help. You're going to remember this from last week. These are the concentric circles that reflect our experience at different levels. And the work that we're going to be doing today and throughout our time together is looking at, for instance, the body and how we feel physically. So often we kind of live head up. We don't enter into the body space and appreciate how it feels unless we're uncomfortable or in pain. And that brings me to a point that physical sensations that are painful are worth noticing and attending to. Talking to your doctor and your healthcare team about any pain you're experiencing is important. Pain is stressful. I remember being in hospital after surgery, and I wasn't using the pain pump enough. And the anesthetist came in and said, we noticed you're not using the pain pump enough and you look like you're in pain. And I said, well, I don't want to use it. And he said, pain is stress on the body, and the body has a hard time healing when it's stressed. I want you to start using the pain pump, not just as needed, but kind of on a regular basis so that you can get used to it and notice the difference. So I took his advice and I began to use it more judiciously. And I noticed I was more relaxed. I was calmer. And that wasn't just the effect of the medication, it was not being in pain. If you are in pain, talk to your team. There are things that can be done. It's important. The next layer is conscious mind. And those are the thoughts that we have. And thoughts and feelings are intricately engaged with each other. Give me a feeling, give me a thought. I'll usually find one behind the other, right? It's hard to have a thought without a feeling. It's hard to really have a feeling without a thought. So we want to be aware and open to that. We want to learn to listen to the mind. And the deeper mind. Well, some of these are the feelings that you're not always aware of. They kind of sometimes come out sideways. If I lose my temper with somebody, perhaps there's something driving that underneath. What's going on underneath? And so part of our work together will be learning to listen to that inner mind a little more, become more aware of what we're feeling. We'll also work with imagery, and imagery is often how we can speak to our deeper mind. The social, we'll talk about relationships with family, friends, the healthcare team that you work with, your colleagues. And finally, that spiritual level, which for some of you will be familiar, and for others, it'll be a newer thing. It's really about understanding the meaning of our lives, our purpose in life. It doesn't have to be religious. It can be more existential, but sometimes it's very religious. It's okay. There's no judgment, with or without religion. Spirituality is a part of our understanding of life. And so we can imagine that cancer is like an experience of just the body. That's the way the medical professions see it, or it can expand into all those levels. And that's the way the healing journey sees it. And as such, we can influence cancer from all those levels too. So when we talk about the physical level, we want to be thinking about things like, am I getting adequate rest and sleep? Am I able to exercise reasonably within my capabilities? There's an exercise program at Wellspring that is designed individually for each person, respecting their limits and their abilities. Am I following a diet that's meeting my physical needs? There's a whole group of nutritional programs here at Wellspring that you can access and learn about what it is that your body needs to heal. We're also learning where our body stores its tension. Am I a shoulder person? Am I a back person? Am I a temple person right up here? Where do I hold my attention? Where do I feel the stress? And when I notice that, what can I do about it? And the conscious level, we're moving now out. Cancer often affects our mind dramatically. It dominates our thoughts, sending us into the future. What will that be like? Or into the past, remembering the diagnosis and the traumas we've been through. Sometimes we numb out, finding it difficult to engage in what's happening around us. Our thoughts generate distress because of the meaning that cancer has for us. It becomes repetitive worry, round and round and round, even waking us up in the middle of the night to remind us to keep on worrying. It goes on overdrive. It's as if worrying is a way to protect ourselves when actually it's just exhausting. So what can we do to help ourselves at this level? Well, we can learn to tune into our thought stream, learn to identify those repetitive, distressing thoughts, and we can learn how to express them. We can learn to stop and reroute these thoughts or let go of the thought stream. And we can learn to replace the thought stream with more healing, friendlier thoughts. And that's the topic of today's discussion. And so the deeper mind, again, we are looking at unconscious mind, where thoughts and feelings and emotions can lurk, where they stay sometimes beyond our awareness. They can be expressed in dreams and in imagery. Sometimes we can learn to communicate with that part of ourselves through journaling, through art therapy, and through imagery. We'll be doing that next session, in session 3. Wellspring also offers art and other creative programs that can support you at this level. Well, the social level, that's an important one, isn't it? And this reflects how we interact with others, our family and our friends, even our medical team. We may have patterns of interaction, perhaps being more or less expressive of our feelings, more or less open with others. We may be experiencing tremendous shifts in our social world because of the cancer. For example, a person who's usually the caregiver of the family may now need the care, and that can be an unusual and uncomfortable feeling. Or you may find that you've been working most of your adult life and now you're not, and that is a sensation perhaps of isolation, maybe loneliness, certainly an unusual feeling of drifting. Support groups can be a really helpful place to talk about these changes with others who are in the same boat. And I'm hoping that you're beginning to notice that the people around you here in the healing journey are people who recognize many of the feelings that you're having. And finally, that sense of the existential level, the spiritual level, again, not religious, but a deep understanding of the meaning of one's life and of one's purpose. We can feel angry about having cancer or the timing of the cancer in our lives. We can question the meaning of this experience. Some people see it as an opportunity for growth. Others experience it as a tremendous loss. For most of us, it's a combination of both. We believe it is possible to engage with all these levels to improve quality of life and relieve suffering and distress. We also believe that it's possible to change that internal soup that we talked about, the neighborhood that's within us, the cellular neighborhood, and make it less friendly to cancer. So let's look at the body for a moment and let's talk about sleep. We've mentioned sleep a couple of times today, but we want to talk about something that has been called good sleep hygiene. It's a funny term, eh? Hygiene. So let's ask the group, how many of you are having challenges with sleep? And this is where we allow the group to bubble up and to begin to talk about something that's fairly neutral, fairly non-threatening. So sleep problems tend to lie in two directions. People either have difficulty falling asleep, or they have difficulty staying asleep, or both. And so what we want to do is to put it on the table and to begin to look at it. So part of enhancing our resources to cope is getting enough sleep. Then we want to ask the group whether they've had any luck in managing their sleep issues. It's always helpful to hear it coming from our members rather than us saying it. That kind of lived experience is valuable, and it's part of people bonding together in the group. So some people will have some ideas about how to manage sleep issues. Some people may be at sea with that question. So here's some suggestions. And again, if you want to keep track of the conversation using clipboard or a chart, writing them down as people come up with it, holding it up to show the group, saying, here are some of your ideas. So let me recap so that we can cover that conversation. Keeping a regular sleep schedule, and that means going to bed at the same time each night. Something we may not have to think about too much prior to cancer, but it becomes really important now. Having that regular schedule, limiting our exposure to screens, computer, the phone, the television, trying to put it away an hour or so before bedtime, and avoiding upsetting material. This is the time to watch Jane Austen movies, not the time to watch Dirty Harry. Just saying, choose. I think it's really helpful to have go-to soothing things you can watch on the screen. Limiting your intake of caffeine. always a good idea anyway, but particularly later on in the day. Having a comfortable, quiet bedroom that's not too hot, not too cold. And if you're having hot flashes due to medication, which is really very common, I found it helpful to sleep in a tech t-shirt, a runner's t-shirt. They wick moisture away from the body, they dry quickly, and have a couple beside your bed so you can whip them off and put on a fresh one. And that way it's less disruptive. Having a sleep basket. The sleep basket contains things that you find helpful, like an app on your phone that helps you with sleep. Calm, C-A-L-M, is a well-known one. They have rather interesting strategy. They have somebody reading very, very boring books. Very boring books. And that puts us to sleep because of that. It's very reminiscent of being a small child. I found that listening to books on tape was the only way I could read because my eyes were sore from chemo. And I also found that I really liked that feeling of being told a story. Sometimes they were exciting stories and sometimes they were boring. I used to go to sleep to Winston Churchill's biography, and I used to listen to a lot of Harry Potter stories. What else can we do? Put in that sleep basket an eye mask, calming scent, anything that helps calm you. You can look up sleep hygiene online and come up with all kinds of ideas. Sleep hygiene is a big topic these days because we're in such a stressed society that sleep is golden. Nutrition. How many of you in the group are challenged with nutritional issues? So we want to get that group to tell us what's going on for them, tell us what they have found helpful. One of the things that can be, that people may not think about is accessing the dietitian at the hospital. The dietitian, particularly one who is connected to the cancer center, can have lots of really great ideas about what people can do. I was a vegetarian when I was diagnosed. And when I was on chemo and post-surgically, I wasn't doing very well. And the nutritionist said, well, or the dietitian said, you're not taking in nearly enough protein. I think I was taking like 30 milligrams. And she said, you need 80, 85 milligrams a day. The thought of doing that just overwhelmed me. And so she was able to help me problem solve around that. And it was really very helpful. Changing to lactose-free milk is helpful for some people because food intolerances come up relative to various medications. Watching water intake is important. Water can taste very different when you're on chemo. It kind of has sometimes a sweet taste or sometimes a metallic taste, which is off-putting. So how can we problem solve around that? So having a consultation with a hospital dietitian is helpful. And of course, the nutrition program at Wellspring is always full of helpful ideas and resources. Exercise. Now that just may be the last thing on your list right now. But what we know about exercise is that it enables us to use that biochemical flow that comes with stress and release it. Think of those antelopes who see a tiger in the forest and they run like crazy across the savannah, and then they stop and they go back to eating their lunch. They are using up stress hormones that their body has created in response to the stressor being a tiger. We don't do that. Like I say, we're the only people, or the only animals, the only mammals that have a stress response sitting down in a chair. Exercise can, you're going to ask the group what their thoughts are about that. Exercise can be as simple as taking a walk outside as often as once a day. There's also a program at Wellspring, of course, for exercise. Anything that we can do to release the fight, flight, and flee response is helpful. Taking walks is useful in that capacity. Stress. We're back to stress. Let's look at the idea that some stress can be avoided. Rushing is a really stressful experience. Being late is a stressful experience. How many of us experience the stress of trying to get to an appointment on time, to meet somebody on time, to do something on time? This is a place where we do have some control. I think that honestly, well, I think we all have a rather dishonest relationship with time. We think that we can fit more into that space of time that we have than we really can. Getting around the city can be difficult. So we want to give ourselves ample time by leaving early. And if you arrive early for an appointment, take your journal with you. You can do some journaling while you're waiting. Just one suggestion for reducing stress. What are other forms of stressors that you feel that you can avoid? Asking the group, checking it out. What do we see? Learning to say no. How many of us have practiced at that? Learning to say no is a big one. Often we feel that we have to say yes when people ask us to do something for them because we want to be nice, we want to be liked. How many of us say yes and then realize that that's going to be stressful? Learning to say no is a useful skill. Let's ask the group, how many of you are learning to say no to requests more frequently? What's that like? Does anyone have any examples? I'm always big on asking the group for examples of what they're talking about to clarify what it is that they mean. Otherwise, it's easy to misunderstand people sometimes. So can you give me an example of that? Can you tell me the last time that happened for you? What was that like? So we want to be able to think about ways of reserving energy and avoiding the stressors that are out there. So now we're going to shift to the next level, which is how the mind labels an experience. So what I want us to do is to close our eyes and watch our thoughts for 2 minutes. I just want you to watch them. Don't want you to change them. I don't want you to judge them. I want you to make like an eavesdrop. You're listening in to something that's going on inside your own head. And then I'm going to ask you to write it down. So I'm going to watch the time. Here we go. Just watch those thoughts. Give people 2 minutes. And what I'm hoping I see are their eyes closed and they're just watching. Then when they come back to the room after 2 minutes, I ask them to write things down. Give them a minute or two. And then I ask, well, what did you notice? Was it calm and tranquil up there? Or was it a torrent of busyness? What was your thought stream like when you woke up this morning? What's it like before bed? What's it like in the middle of the night? You can check in with your thought stream many, many, many times during the day to notice what it is that you are telling yourself. What are your thoughts saying? If you're saying to yourself, this is disastrous, this is a nightmare, this is terrible, your body is going to send those messages from the frontal lobes to the amygdala down to the pituitary gland. You're going to have a stress response. But if you can say to yourself, this is okay, I can manage this. I'm just going to work our way through it. That sends a message to the body that I'm okay. Things are okay. Let's take that example of sleep. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I have a torrential flow of thoughts, part of those thoughts could be, oh no, it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I can't fall asleep again. I'm going to be tired in the morning. I have to sleep. That's really important. I've got to get some sleep. Sleep's really important. I'm adding to the stress of the busyness of the mind. Here's an alternative. What if I take the time to acknowledge the thoughts through writing them down? I'm worried about my appointment tomorrow. I think I'm going to have another scan. Boy, I hate that chemo. This is my good week, but I know next week's going to suck. And then put it away. Look at the clock and say, it's okay. I'm not working. I can take this time off. If I don't sleep now, I can have a nap. Notice the difference of experience when we change the label to, I can cope with this. From, oh no, I'm awake at 4:30 in the morning. This is a disaster. It changes how we experience it. Some people will come from thought watching and say, well, I didn't have any thoughts. It's all quiet up there. So I might say to them, okay, how long do you think you can keep that up? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? How long will the mind stay silent? Even meditators who've been working for years at quietening the mind have busy days, days when the thoughts are just too thick to calm. So we want to be able to make this a skill, that observing thoughts, becoming aware of our thoughts is like listening to the inner dialogue and really saying to ourselves, what is it that I am telling myself about this moment? It seems like such a simple skill, but it's really important. And we're going to come back to this idea later on in the healing journey. Distressing thoughts take up a tremendous amount of energy. They're exhausting. And it's as if we believe that worrying about things will change them. Things will be what they will be, whether we worry or not. A small trigger can send us off into a flurry of worry. Let's take an example of, say, missing a phone call from the doctor's secretary. What are the thoughts that come up for you? You've missed the call. What do you think's going on? And this is a great thing to write down so people can see it and absorb it. The kinds of things that'll come up in group is, oh no, something's wrong. That's that idea that the house alarm is going off. It's been triggered. They're triggered and they're having lots of scary thoughts. There's bad news. I'm in trouble. I need more treatment. Cancer's worse. I'm going to die. This is a cascade of thoughts. And like spaghetti, the mind gets all tangled up with all sorts of panicky feelings, spinning far afield from the original trigger, which was missing a phone call. It's not productive. It doesn't move towards solutions. It doesn't decrease the stress. And ultimately, that phone call can be quite harmless. For example, it might be a reminder of an upcoming appointment. We get hijacked by our thoughts. We catastrophize. When people are coping with cancer, what are some of the thoughts that evoke that anxious feeling? Cancer has spread. I'll need more treatment. It might not work. We'll look after my family. After cancer, for example, it's been said there are no innocent pains. Every pain feels important and worrisome. Another participant has said, how many times do I need to tell myself I have cancer? I know already, but I go around and around and around it. It's not just the thoughts, but what they do to us emotionally, physically, socially, and spiritually. It's helpful to notice that the body does not think on its own. It can't discriminate hijacking thoughts from the truth. If you're telling the body, or if the body is listening in to these thoughts, it's going to take it on and say, oh, we need a stress response. Let me get you for it. I can do that for you. So how do we help ourselves? Love this picture. I love this picture. That's a 4 o'clock in the morning picture, isn't it? So here we are. Thinking is an automatic process, but with time and experience, we can begin to notice, identify, and work with the thoughts that we have. Feelings can be said that we have a thought first and then a feeling. I just think of them as being linked. Thoughts and feelings, they come together like peanut butter and jelly. It's very hard to separate the two. And these connections between thoughts and feelings move so quickly, sometimes it's hard to untangle them. What's the thought and what's the feeling? And that's why we want to be able to learn to listen and to learn to identify what my feelings are so I can see what the thoughts are that are inspiring those feelings. And we can manage our emotions by working with our thoughts. That's one of the handles we have. You can't always change the feeling directly, but if I can be aware of the thoughts that I have around that feeling, if I change those thoughts, I can change some of the feelings attached to it. Let's have a look at what that might look like. Managing thoughts and feelings. First of all, we want to be aware of the thoughts. That's why that thought watching is really important. What is it that I'm thinking? What is my mind telling me? And then notice what feelings that evokes in me. If I'm pondering, cogitating, mulling my upcoming doctor's appointment, then I'm going to have a whole lot of feelings attached to that. Discomfort, anxiety, stress. My imagination is very vivid. Then we want to move into the next strategy, and that is to express those thoughts and feelings. In essence, what we want to do is move them out of the body, move them out of the silence of the mind into the world. There are lots of ways to do that. We can talk to others, friends, family who are willing to listen or who are comfortable with it, a professional therapist, someone who specializes in oncology so they can understand the aspects of your experience that are important to you, as well as a support group here in the healing journey. Talking to a peer support volunteer. Never forget that. That's an important source of support. We can exercise if that feels comfortable. We can go for a walk. We can play music. We can sing. If you make music, play that guitar. If you sing, belt it out. Or if you want to listen to music, you can choose to find music that echoes your mood, that expresses it for you. Write them out. Put it out on paper. Relaxation. Do a relaxation tape and then let it go. Holding on to it doesn't change it. Holding on to it does not move us closer to a solution. The third step is to substitute more helpful, and I would say probably more realistic thoughts and actions. For example, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. That repetitive thought with, no, wait a minute. I will do everything I can to help myself. That's just an example. Let's think of another example. And I often like to put these on the board. Let's look at what the hijacker is. How about chemotherapy? This chemotherapy is killing me. That's a common thought and an understandable thought, because chemotherapy, most chemos anyway, affect just about every aspect of your physical experience. Take the time to notice what you are saying. Ask yourself what you're saying about this experience. How are you labeling it? Identify those thoughts. This chemo is killing me. Discharge them. Let them go. Tell somebody how challenging it is for you. I can remember talking to a nurse about similar feelings. She was the nurse that looked after my PICC line. And she was wonderful. She said, of course you feel like that some days. What a relief to hear that. Some days feel like that. That's okay. Not every day feels like that, and it's not true. It's helping me. It was a wonderful conversation. But I wouldn't have had it if I hadn't said to the nurse, sometimes this is how I feel. So telling people how you feel, writing them down, asking your healthcare team for help in dealing with side effects. Talk to others who are on chemo and what has helped them cope. And then we replace the thought, moving down to number 3. This chemo is very powerful medicine. It is killing the cancer. That's a different message than this chemo is killing me. The chemo is powerful. It's killing the cancer. I'm losing my hair because the chemo is effective. It kills fast-growing cells. Let's think about other reframing thoughts that we can bring to bear on this situation. What have other people used, or what can you imagine? So we want to stimulate other people in the group to think about other ways of reframing any given situation. Here's another example. I have a new pain. That's a common one. Everybody who has cancer will discover pains and aches they never knew that they had, and they'll always worry that it's something serious when perhaps it's just trivial. It's time, take the time to notice and observe the thoughts that come up in response to the new pain. You might want to journal that. It's the cancer coming back. It means the cancer is spreading. It means the chemo is not working. Look at the thoughts. Find the thoughts. Sit with the thoughts. Observe the thoughts. Notice that there is an observer quality in everything that we're doing here. That observer self is something we're going to work with a lot as we move through the levels of the healing journey. And you can identify it here if you like. This idea that I can be the thinker, but I can also be the observer. It's a very powerful position. I can be stressed, but I can observe the stress. I can feel the stress in my body, but I can identify the stress. I can observe that stress. Oh, look, my shoulders are tight. Oh, look, I'm crunched up. Isn't that interesting? If I can notice and become aware of it, it gives me choices. I can change that thought. I can soften my shoulders. I can take a few breaths. Even the process of observing the breath is one of being an observer. Becoming the observer of our experience gives us choices. So with a new pain, identifying the source of the anxiety, writing out the thoughts, expressing them to others. You may want to develop a plan. How do you plan to cope with the pain? Well, is it severe enough that I need attention now, or do I think I can observe it for a week and then share it with the nurse that I see next week? Maybe I want to see a doctor if it doesn't get better in a couple of hours, or maybe if it doesn't get better in a couple of days, depending on how severe it is. Beginning to make a game plan. And then we replace that anxious thought with, I have a plan. I can practice a relaxation to reduce the pain. What other reframing thoughts can you imagine? How would you cope with that anxious thought? So thinking becomes a thought-feeling cycle. The thoughts beget the feelings, beget the thoughts, and they roll along. And what we want to do is break that connection, at least for a moment, to take a breath and recoup, to rethink our situation. Thought stopping, clapping our hands, stop thinking. Gives us a moment to pull back and look at what's going on. Wearing an elastic band on your wrist, which you can ping as a way of breaking a thought cycle. This is one that's used with compulsions. Using a little mini relaxation through the day. That deep breathing can be a very powerful source of rejigging the cycling thoughts. Having a timer on the cell phone that where every hour, something pings and reminds you just to take a few deep breaths. Some group members put sticky dots on stressors in their life, like their cell phone, to remind them to take some deep breaths when they see that. Sometimes people really want to worry. So set about some time. Let's take 15 minutes and worry like crazy, but then you have to stop. I really think that that's important to do with a journal. Give yourself a space to acknowledge it, to write it out. We're going to talk a lot more about journaling in level 2. Do a deep relaxation. Take a break. I think going for a walk is really powerful as a way of changing how we feel. So that's the way we manage healthy thought management. It's a lot to take on board in one mouthful, in one session, but we keep coming back to it again and again and again, helping people learn how to instill this into their lives. Now we want to introduce deep inner relaxation. This is without the tensing and the relaxing of muscles, and it is a way into a relaxation that, again, is creating the response so that it becomes something that people can create for themselves. When Alistair does it on the MP3 files, he moves from the top of the head all the way down through the body, down to the toes. And it's a wonderful way of doing it. I too start at the top of the head because that just seems to be right, because that's the way I've been trained. But lots of people start from the bottom up. I would suggest we try to keep that consistent, starting at the top of the head and moving down. He uses escalators to go down deeper and deeper into the mind, into a quiet, safe place. And that's wonderful. Lots of people really like it. Some people, however, find that escalator movement a little bit out of their control, that they are being moved rather than they're doing the moving. And they do not like going down, down, down. So for me, I have my own kind of induction. I think it's in the book. I like to use the light because the light is something that people find helpful. And I want to reiterate the use of light as an image that is healing. So I start with light at the top of the head, moving through the body. And I use it to work with specific muscle groups as we go through the body. People have found that pretty helpful as a way of having a mental image that they can use to work with a sense of relaxation. So I'm going to use the initial relaxation process of the light, but then I will go and show you the escalator strategy. And what we're going to do is go down, down, down into a relaxing private room where people can go to take care of themselves. A quiet place to escape from the world. So let's give that one a go. We invite people to be very, very comfortable. Being in a chair is useful. People can use this for sleeping, and that's fine. But we also want to remain conscious through this process, at least some of the time, so that we can begin to learn how to do this for ourselves. If you fall asleep halfway through the MP3 file all the time, you're not going to hear the end of it. And you're not going to be laying down the neuronal tracks in the brain-body connection that allow yourself to do this more and more easily. In time, a few deep breaths should be able to produce a relaxation response. When people have been doing this for months, they should be able to begin to feel that sense of real shift when they do some mindful breathing. So I will use light for this induction. That's what we call the entry into the imagery, an induction. And then we'll use the escalator. So I hope you're comfortable. I hope you get to enjoy this too. So just taking a moment to sit in the chair and feel the support that holds you. Letting yourself be comfortable. Settling into the chair. I sometimes think of it a bit like a bird on a nest. She wants to get comfortable and supported and safe. When you feel ready, you can allow your eyes to close. Just soften, knowing you can open it at any time. Perhaps the first thing you might become aware of is your breath. I'm hoping it's becoming a good friend to you. You're becoming really familiar with it, kind of your go-to place. Feel the body flowing with the breath. Feeling your shoulders rise as you inhale. And shoulders drop as you exhale. If there is busyness in the mind that calls you away to do some thinking, gently corral it and bring it back to the sound of my voice. Those thoughts will be there for you later. You can always go back. Right now, stay with the voice. What might it be like to invite a beautiful beam of healing light in through the top of your head? Light is warm and soft, very, very comfortable. And as it flows in through the top of your head, it washes around inside your head, clearing away the busyness of mind, washing away the thoughts, releasing them with your breath, just letting them go. And that lovely light washing around the inside of your head now begins to wash around the outside of your head like a beautiful, beautiful crown of light. Feel it at the back of your head, softening the muscles at the back of the skull, the back of your head. Feel it coming around to your temples and to your forehead. Perhaps the light is like a gentle hand sweeping across your forehead, releasing the furrows, allowing your eyebrows to drop above your eyes so they're comfortable. Feeling that sense of letting go. Let the light swirl around your eyes, all the tiny little muscles that control the eyes, the muscles of vigilance and watching. Let those muscles relax. Let them let go. Let yourself see towards the inner horizon. Soft light like a caress through your cheeks. Feel it moving from your ears all the way down, down, down to the tip of your chin. Feel the strong muscles that cradle the jaw. What would it be like to invite them to soften, to let go? You might even open your mouth a little just to invite those muscles to relax. Can you feel your tongue resting in your mouth? Can you let it rest? Can you feel your lips relaxing? Let your whole face be awash in healing light. Soft, soft, beautiful. There may even be a gentle inner smile that only you can see as you gaze inwardly upon yourself with compassion. Drawing that light down through your neck. See if you can find the right position for your head upon your neck upon your shoulders, a sense of alignment that is ever, ever so comfortable and poised. Feel that light coming down through the great muscles of the neck, softening them. Feel it's flowing down through your throat, through the silvery vocal cords. That sense of balance. The light knows where it's needed. It travels down, 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 deeply into your shoulders. And see if you can't feel how your shoulders release and rest into the light. The breath might be helpful here too. And if you want to take a deep breath, just release your shoulders. You can do that too. Anything that helps you communicate softness and safety to your body. Warm light travels down your arms, through the upper arms, the biceps, the triceps, these strong muscles do so much for you. Cradle your elbows in warm healing light and feel that light travel all the way down through your forearms, through the intricate mechanisms of the wrists. And then let that light pool in the palms of your hands. Warm, powerful, healing. Feel how the light travels through each and every finger, releasing the tension, dissipating it. So much light, you're bathed in it. What would it be like to imagine breathing that light in as you inhale and exhaling anything that doesn't feel absolutely right? Inhaling healing light, exhaling tension. Feel that light filling your lungs and all the muscles around your chest as they relax, become more spacious. So there's more room for you to breathe. So much light in your lungs, it flows over and into your heart. Feel your heart full of light. You may almost be able to sense it beating. Warm light cascades through you. It cascades to every cell within your being, whispering, be well, be well. That light now filling your chest, filling your body, bringing it down through the diaphragm and into the full roundness of your belly. Feel how that light fills the belly, washes through all the organs within you, healing them, letting them work efficiently. Feel that sense of rhythm in your body as it works to heal itself. Light in the full roundness of the belly softens into the breath, and you can feel your body engaging in breath as the belly becomes a partner in the movement of breath through your body. The light keeps pouring in. It comes in through your head and it goes all the way down your back. Can you feel it moving down through your neck, vertebrae by vertebrae, down, down, down your back, sweeping through your shoulder blades as they drop further down your back, letting your shoulders drop, following all the way down your back. Can you bring that light into the delicate curve of the small of your back? Leaning into the chair, feeling the support that is there for you. Dropping your weight down, down, down into the chair. Perhaps you do not need to hold yourself up. Perhaps you do not need to hold up others, not in this moment. So much light filling you. You are almost like a beacon or a lantern glowing from the inside out. And now the light travels down your legs. Feel it moving through the great muscles of the thighs, the quadriceps. Feel them resting in the chair. Let the light whirl around your knees, such delicate mechanisms, the knees. Give them this moment to relax. And then feeling how the light travels all the way down through your calves, right into your heels. Feel the movement of that light, softening, relaxing all the muscles that it comes in touch with. Can you feel your heels? Can you feel the light in your heels now traveling up through the arches of your feet, the balls of your feet, and then through each and every toe? Can you actually bring your awareness into each and every toe? And then even feeling that light travel down through your feet, down through the floor into the earth, giving you deep roots to hold you, to ground you strong. You are held. Gathering up your attention, bringing it back to the breath, and just taking a moment to notice how this feels. Is there any part of you needing more light in this moment? Breathe it in and direct it to wherever light is needed. You can draw this light in and give it to your body, your heart, your mind, and your spirit. So here we are in the breath. What might it be like to deepen this relaxation? We can take an escalator down more deeply into ourselves, or perhaps a staircase if that's more comfortable for you. Or you might even walk down a grassy slope. It's your choice. Some people like to imagine going up the stairs rather than down, or they like to imagine floating in a hot air balloon. Whatever you choose, you are safe and you're comfortable and you are completely in control. And so for now, I will describe the escalator because that's what's on the tape that you'll be using at home. See yourself stepping onto the escalator, beginning your journey to a safe and comfortable place. Feel the motion gently, ever so gently, moving you down, 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 down more deeply into yourself. Feel the motion, feel that movement going more deeply into yourself. If thoughts pop up to distract you, just gently notice it and then come back to the sensations of warmth and heaviness. You can turn the corner at the bottom of the escalator and there's a second one and a basket there, right there on the ground. And if you have thoughts and feelings that are still distracting you, you can take those and just put them in the basket. Just put them in the basket. They'll be safe there. You can leave them. And we now step on to the second escalator. Feel that step and feel your hand on the railing and that smooth, easy, safe motion. Down, down, down. Anything that distracts you is being left behind. And you are always in control. You're very secure as you choose to enjoy the feeling of relaxation and comfort. Let yourself enjoy that feeling of going down, down. And when you reach the bottom, just step off the escalator easily and comfortably. There at the bottom of that escalator is a door. It's a door that goes into your special place. It belongs just to you. It could be an old door, fancy door, any kind of door that makes sense to you. Feel your hand on the handle and notice how it opens up so easily to your touch. And as you step into this room, know that it's yours, your private room. You can decorate it any way you want. Flowers, pictures, carpet, maybe a view out the window, a fireplace. Notice that there's a very, very comfortable chair just waiting for you. And as you slip into it, any last vestiges of holding just float away. You are safe here. This is your private sanctuary. It belongs just to you. You're completely safe, completely at peace in a deep and central part of yourself. You have no troubles, no concerns, not at the moment. This is just where you need to be. Just drink it in, this special place that belongs just to you. I'll give you a minute or two to enjoy it, and then we'll come back together. Know that you can return to this room whenever you want it, whenever you need it. And in fact, the more often you come here, the easier it will be to find. I'm going to bring us back now. So we'll come back together to our room that we're sharing. And I'm going to count easily and gently backwards from 5. At 5, you're soft and relaxed in your room, in your healing room. And imagine that we take 5 steps back. From 5, we move to 4, and you feel that sense of movement, of letting go, of coming back, knowing this image is always here for you. And from 4, we take another step to 3. And you might begin to feel your body. Can you feel your fingers? Can you feel your toes? Maybe you can feel the chair that holds you. And from 3, we move to 2, becoming more aware of where you are in time and space, aware of returning, of coming back, but bringing back with you that sense of peacefulness that's going to last for days and nights yet to come. You might be more aware of the sounds around you, more aware of where you are, and then very easily, very gently, as it feels right for you, returning to the room and letting your eyes open. So I'm hoping that that was a helpful experience for people. Know that you can practice that at home. And in fact, the more often you practice it, the easier it's going to be to become part of you. You'll be able to find yourself there as you wish. Know too that it's your own private room. Nobody can disturb you there. We're going to be doing work in that healing room, particularly next week when we're going to be doing some imagery work. Let us have a story, and then we'll do some light. And I hope you enjoy your week. So this is a story about yet another elephant. I think that elephants are really the theme animal of the healing journey. I'm very fond of elephants myself. In the Hindu tradition, we often compare the mind to the trunk of an elephant. Restless, inquisitive, getting into trouble, always straying. If you watch an elephant sometimes, you'll see how apt this comparison is. This is a story by Eknath Easwaran, who writes about meditation and spirituality. He goes on to say, in our towns and villages, caparisoned elephants are often taken to religious processions through the streets to the temple. The streets are crooked and narrow and lined on either side with fruit stalls and vegetable stalls. And along comes the elephant with his restless trunk. You know what he's going to do. He checks it all out. He grabs a bunch of bananas, takes a few, throws the rest away. What do you expect me to do? Here's my trunk. Here are the bananas. He doesn't know what else to do with his trunk. He doesn't pause to peel them. He just takes the whole bunch, opens his mouth, and tosses them down. Then from the next stall, he picks up a coconut and tosses it in after the bananas. There's a loud crack, and the elephant moves on to the next stall. No threats or promises can make this restless trunk settle down. But the wise Maut, if he knows his elephant well, will just give the trunk a short bamboo stick to hold on to before the procession begins. Then the elephant will walk along proudly with his trunk held high, holding his bamboo stick in front of him, like a drum major with a baton. He's not interested in bananas or coconuts anymore. His trunk has something to hold on to. The mind is very much like this. Most of the time, it has nothing to hold on to. But we can keep it from straying into all kinds of absurd situations if we give it something to focus on, a stick or a mantra, which we'll talk more about in level 2, or even observing it and writing down what we notice. So then we do a light circle, just as we did before, and as we will always do, imagining light coming through, imagining ourselves filling with it, and then seeing that light flow into the center of the circle. And into this light, we place those people that may need light today, who we care about. As a last note before we finish today, as a leader, one of the things that you may notice in the technique of doing relaxation and guided imagery is it's all suggestion. We're not telling people what to do. It's more like a suggestion where we use language like, what would it be like to imagine? It's invitational. It's an invitation to experience these things rather than a you must. And this light touch makes it easier for people to access these experiences It's not an invitation for resistance. It's an invitation to explore. We're also kind of predicting what people will feel. Notice the warmth, notice the heaviness, notice the sense of being held. All of this is, again, a part of noticing, which is something that we've been encouraging all along. Notice the thoughts, notice the stress. Now notice what's possible with relaxation. You'll probably bring your own style to that relaxation technique. And as long as we find that inner room, it's all good. Do listen to Alistair's tape so that you have a sense of what they'll be working with at home. But you can also modify it when you do it live so that it fits your own style. Thanks so much for spending time today learning more about healthy thought management. In our next session, we're going to be doing guided imagery, and I invite you to bring paper, crayons, love working with crayons, pencil crayons, so that you can do some of your own imagery, so that you can allow yourself to feel what that's like to be a member of the group actually exploring it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will continue in our next session. Take care.